Welcome to our podcast, Broker Banter Denver, where we are breaking down barriers to home ownership. I'm your host, Kim Davis, the real estate expert.
And I'm Patrick Williams, the mortgage guy. We're here to inform and educate about the home financing and buying process.
And on today's episode, we are going to talk about a survey that Fannie Mae came out about mortgages, and we're also going to tell you reasons why you should own a home.
So you've had an interesting week.
I did have an interesting week. It's been a somewhat stressful week.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So what's going on? You want to talk about it?
Sure.
We
yeah,
have a
we
little
can
bit
talk
of
about
a counseling session here on the podcast.
Yes, let's have one. So my daughter, who is now 20, had a car accident when she was 17, and she rear-ended someone on C-470. It was a pretty minor accident, no airbags deployed. It was, when C-470, you drive really fast and someone stops suddenly.
And then all of a sudden you're going from 70 to
23, 0, whatever. Right. And she was 17. So she was probably following a little bit too closely, and she slammed on her brakes, and she didn't quite or she hit the guy in front of her. Mm-hmm. And but she did swerve a little bit, but she didn't want to swerve too far because she wasn't sure who was on the side of her. And so she hit him. It was, it was not a bad accident. Like I said,
if there's no airbags.
Right. So she hit him going less than 15, which I'm not saying that you can't get hurt from that. That's, but this guy who was, I don't know, in his late 20s at the time, decided to sue us, which is fine, right? Or to,
it's the insurance companies are
to get
all,
an insurance claim, which, hey, that's what insurance is for. Yep. No issues with that. Whatever you do, insurance should cover it.
Yeah.
95 or 98% of the time, most people settle.
Yeah.
And so my insurance company was like, hey, we'll give you $150,000.
Wow.
And, for your time and your suffering and your medical and whatever. Yeah. And so I think it was his lawyer, but this lawyer was like, nope, sorry, we want $800,000.
Whoa!
And,
wait, 150?
Yeah.
And he's saying no. I want
800.
That's a pretty big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't come to a agreement. So
you went to trial.
Took us to trial, a jury trial, a 6-person jury trial in Jefferson County. Where then, when he got there and did his opening statement, said he was actually looking for $2 million. And then at the closing arguments, it ended up being $2.4 million that they were asking for. And we're talking about he had some whiplash, which, yes, and a little bit of lower back pain.
Sure.
But nothing that, And so here was my issue and my, reason why I was so, stressed out this week is because we have car insurance, and then we have an umbrella policy.
Which is a good thing to have for additional protection.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the 2.4 was going past what our umbrella was, past what our car insurance was.
Yeah.
And so if a jury came out and said, yes, you owe this gentleman $2.4 million, our family would have been in trouble, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Bankruptcy or something like that.
Right, like that's a lot of money.
Right.
So, but I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just trying to
process.
You get rear-ended. It sounds to me that the settlement of $150,000 sounds pretty fair.
Yeah.
And the difference between 150 and 2.4, that's a pretty big difference.
Huge difference.
That's a big difference.
Yes, big difference.
So 3-day trial.
3-day trial. They bring up experts of why he's hurt, his character. I mean, it was dumb. And then, of course, my daughter has to go on the stand and tell her story.
Was she pretty nervous?
She was nervous. She's 20. She feels bad because she feels like because she was 17 and made a mistake that her whole family is going to be broke. And so she's trying to come up with that stress.
Yeah.
She gets on the stand and whatever. And so then this was yesterday, which today is a Thursday. So this was Wednesday. And then, everyone rests and it goes to the jury. And then you sit around, we sat around for 2 hours, just over 2 hours, 2.5, something like that, to figure it out. And so in the end, they gave him $160,000. Yeah. So $10,000 more if he would have just taken it to begin with. He went
and wasted the court's time and all that stuff.
And the judge was not happy.
Right.
With
you
that
have
side.
just wasted our time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And ambulance chasers, as they're called, those lawyers, and it's a shame.
Is that a derogatory term?
Probably. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some good ones.
There's
right?
a lot.
There's some lawyers that and there are some accidents that where it's
your life will not be the same after that accident,
right.
and so there's a place for those
right.
things.
From,
but when you were telling me about this before, last week before you went to trial, I was like, this just sounds like a money grab to me.
Exactly.
And I'm glad to hear that the jury
saw that also.
Saw that.
Yes. And it's just sad.
They should make them pay for court costs.
They should. I mean, we don't have to pay it. The lawyer was hired by the insurance company.
Right.
So here's my big dilemma now that I face. Because now I'm like, okay, well, we're obviously underinsured as a family. Mm-hmm. And it really depends on the assets you have and all that stuff. But the problem I'm having now is, and I talked to the lawyer about this, what is that balance where you have more insurance? Because then this could happen every time, right?
Right.
And the reason why the lawyer decided to come after us, because they're like, oh, look at this. They have a lot of insurance, right?
So you think that's part of it? They saw your $1 million umbrella policy.
Right.
Well, that's a good question for one of our insurance partners.
It is.
Maybe we need to get somebody back on the on the
but
podcast
they sell
here.
insurance, so they're going to tell you, oh, you want to be insured.
Well, maybe.
But then also, so every time, so it's only going to be a problem if you get into a car accident or someone falls on your
driveway, sidewalk,
or something happens. And they're going to see a policy, and that lawyer is going to push them to sue. So I'm in a dilemma right now on what do I do. And so I don't know.
Well, if anybody has any advice for Kim about insurance, please reach out.
But how horrible.
That's just stressful. That's a stressful week for you and your family, your daughter especially.
Yes.
I've never been on that side of things.
Right.
At least as an adult.
Tell us about your past,
but
Patrick.
I've been every time I get selected to go to jury duty, I get on the freaking jury. Every single time.
How many? I've done one jury.
Well, I've done 3.
3?
Yeah.
What are they on?
One was like an armed robbery, but that one ended up, they kicked me off of that one. Like I was in the box, and then the defense attorney asked me about stealing bread to provide for your family. And I'm like, well, that's still stealing. Like, there's a lot of programs that you can get some bread that somebody will give you. You don't have to steal.
Right.
Like, even if you don't have money, you can still find bread to feed your family. And he's like, you're out of here. And then another one was like a drunk driving accident, and he was defending himself. That was a show.
Oh.
Yeah. So I just feel like every single time I get, and my wife never even gets the little card.
I get the
card. Why do I always...
One time, and I was picked for the jury.
Really?
And mine was a sexual abuse case, so it wasn't really a fun one. But
that sounds terrible.
But that was, But it is interesting.
It's emotionally draining just being on the jury and reliving all of these things.
Yes.
They're terrible things that happen in people's lives that change and alter the course of their lives.
Right.
And it's just...
So let me tell you one of the jurors who's pretty funny. So he was in the box, and they had 6 jurors, but they have 14 people in the box, and then they the lawyers ask them questions, and then they decide which 6 they want, right? Uh-huh. And so this one guy, the lawyer said, are you familiar with... how do you feel about lawyers who, do accident cases? What do you think? And this one guy, 2 people were like, nope, hate them. They're ambulance chasers.
They're just trying to get out of jury duty, right?
And they did. And then the third guy was like, hey, I say lie. See what you can get. And I was like, oh my gosh. And the judge
he says to lie?
He's like, see how much money you can get from them.
Take advantage of the system.
Yes.
And he got kicked out.
He got kicked out also. But I do think that he because he didn't say that first, but then I think once he saw that, if I say something outrageous, I can get off of this jury.
It is kind of funny to see people try to get out of the box.
Yeah. I tried to get out of it the first time.
I do too.
I think I might know one of the people, and they were like, would that change your opinion on?
Yes, it would.
Oh, I guess not.
Oh.
You're in.
Well, that's where it's like this fine line. Like, I don't want to be dishonest. I want to do the right thing.
Absolutely, me too.
But at the same time, I would like to not be in the box.
Right.
So,
well, let me suggest that it's not fun being the defendant. I'm sure it's not fun being the plaintiff, but I'm happy that it came out on the right side.
It sounds like everything. I mean, it was basically the original settlement that they offered him.
It was $10,000 more,
Yeah,
and that was not worth $10,000.
No,
That's
definitely
for sure.
not.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's over.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Me
and
too.
justice prevails.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, the justice system works.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think, it's not perfect.
No, it's not. What
but
is perfect?
for the most part, we do a good job.
Yeah,
You know?
I would agree.
The jury system is probably
jury system is
the best.
different. I feel bad that we wasted their time too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you get paid by your employer for 3 days.
Oh well, it lasted 2.5 days.
Yep. I know somebody. Do you remember Quest?
Yeah.
And the CEO of Quest, was it Nacho? Was that his name?
I don't remember.
Anyways, one of the guys I worked with, his dad got selected on that jury, and it was like he was on this jury for months and months because it was such a huge case.
Yeah.
But he loved it. He had just retired and was really excited. Yeah. But no, I just can't imagine doing something like that. Yeah. So let's talk about.
Let's talk about the survey.
So Fannie Mae puts out some surveys to.
And just for people to understand, Fannie Mae.
Fannie Mae is one of the largest mortgage. It's
Backers.
not a company. Yeah, it's not a company. It's like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae on the conventional side, and then the Federal Housing Administration for government loans and VA. So
Fannie is who most loans go through, right?
They do,
Yes.
yeah, and they do the majority of conventional loans.
Correct.
So they have a really large database of people, and they like to send out surveys to help people in the industry understand the client base and where people are as far as the mentality.
Okay.
Now, some of this is the survey went out in December of last year.
Okay.
So like some of the things they ask is like, where are you at with, is it a good time to buy? Right. Well, we're not going to talk about that today because it's 7 months in the past and we're just in a completely different market. But there's some things that I noticed in here that I kind of wanted to point out. And the biggest piece that I found is about education. And the dream of home ownership. I think we hear a lot that dream is dead, right? It's not gonna.
You maybe hear that more than I do.
Maybe because I'm on the front end. By the time they get to you, I've got them pre-approved.
Right. And most of the time when they get to me, like they're excited and want to go buy a house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So 92% of consumers still believe that owning your home or your own home is important and a goal worth, moving forward on.
Good.
So that I think is pretty telling.
I think what I hear more is that people think that they can't own a home, that because of, once again, affordability.
Right. And that's
so
maybe
hard.
where the dream of home kind of yes, there's definitely some challenges right now, especially we're dealing with affordability challenges. Hopefully, as this year goes on and we start to see interest rates come back down, that challenge is going to be less and less and less. Obviously, we talk about the ways to overcome those challenges on our podcast. So there are ways to offset that. But 70% of consumers still believe buying a home is a safe investment.
Good.
Which
it is.
It is. I mean, I don't know that it gets much safer.
Which actually, that is when, we'll bounce back and forth, I guess, but that is, one of the reasons why you want to own a home is, because of.
There's a lot of benefits to owning a home. You're building equity. You're paying off a mortgage. Honestly, if you literally take out one mortgage and you stay in your home for 30 years, you will no longer have a house payment. You'll have taxes and insurance.
Right, exactly.
But
that's predictability, right? Like sometimes rents, it will go up,
Yeah, and
$1,000.
There's a lot of renters who move every year because every year that landlord or the apartment complex raises their rent. Right. And so it's like, well, I guess I'll move so I can get a better deal. And
there's some unpredictability. There's some unpredictability in payments just because you have
taxes and insurance.
But for the most part, you know what you're going to pay. It's going to be that payment for 30 years unless you refinance or something like
that.
that.
I mean, that payment, that principal and interest payment is fixed for the next 30 years and it's never changing.
Right. One
taxes and insurance go up, go down.
Right.
That's a part of the payment. A lot of people consider that. A couple other interesting stats, and then I want to move on to the education part.
Okay.
25% of consumers are actively considering buying a home in the next 3 years.
Yay.
So I think that shows some good,
right.
This is something that we want to, move forward on. 74% of consumers say their next move will be the purchase of a home. So that could be current homeowners that are moving up, moving down, but also renters, right?
Okay.
So a mix of both. 3 out of 4 people, their next move is going to be a home purchase.
Okay.
And then this is a stat that was a little shocking to me, and I think it kind of plays into the next topic, which is education around mortgages and all of that, which is only 21% of renters are currently working on or preparing themselves financially for home ownership. Mm-hmm. So we're talking 1 in 5 people that rent.
Currently rent.
This is only the renting population that was considered in this question.
That are thinking about buying.
That are and working on their credit, saving for a down payment, taking the steps necessary to purchase their home. That number feels really low to me. I feel like
I think I think you said it already, but I think it's a lack of education, right? What do you have to do to buy a house? And I think that some people get especially if they're not educated with how the home buying and mortgage process works, that they just don't think it's attainable.
Yeah.
Right. And so once again, like you said,
education,
but that's what we're here for. That's why we started this podcast, right?
Yeah.
To help educate and,
So that's, there's a big gap there and we're hoping to fill that, right?
Exactly.
So, the other thing that came out, when it comes to knowledge gaps and the mortgage process and understanding what it takes to buy a home. There's three major challenges that they've identified. One is lack of confidence navigating the mortgage process. So it's just overwhelming. I don't even know where to start, right? Overestimating the minimum down payment required.
Yes.
We've talked about this a lot.
We have.
So, we have programs where we can get you into a home for as little as $1,000.
Right. Which we just did.
We did.
Very recently.
Yeah. So, most people think I have to have 20% down. Okay, so I'm going to buy a $500,000 house. I have to save $100,000.
Correct. Don't have to do that.
I've never heard of anybody saving $100,000.
Right. Well, I have. We have.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's a big.
I don't know if they saved it or they just had it because their house, the equity in their home.
Yeah, or current home, or maybe you received an inheritance or things like that. But to actually, hey, I'm putting $500 a month away or $1,000 a month away, 100 months to get to 100,000. Like that's a big.
And I think that is a big reason why renters are like, what? They believe you have to put 20% down, so they don't know. Hey, you might only need 1,000. Hey, you might only need 3.5%, 5%. Something like that.
So the third one is overestimating the minimum credit score required. So thinking I've got to have a 750 credit score in order to buy a house, which isn't true. So to back these 3 major challenges up and what came out in the survey, and then we can move on. But so 45% of consumers feel confident going through the mortgage process. 45%. That's less than half.
Yeah.
That's scary to me.
That is scary.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest. Getting a mortgage is not fun. I'm not trying to
I know. We talk about how much more fun you are than me, and I get that. It can be fun, though.
It can, well.
When you work with me, it's...
Okay, you're fun.
I'm fun.
But the mortgage process can be a little bit, especially buying a house. Let's just be real.
There's some work.
There's work.
And it's a weird industry. I have to ask a lot of my customers or the people I'm working with.
People could find that it's really getting into your finances, right? Because
intrusive.
That's a great word.
I've heard that before. Yes.
And I wouldn't say it's intrusive, but if you're asking someone to loan you, let's say, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000,
that's a lot of money.
They want to make sure that you are going to pay them back. That's a lot of money.
I think that's the goal. We always want to create successful homeowners, right?
They ask for pretty much everything financed except for
we don't need your firstborn or
Yeah,
a blood sample.
That's so funny. I was going to say that too. I was going to say, but you,
Yeah, but short of that,
yeah. You know,
it's
assets.
It's a lot of documentation.
And then if you're borrowing money from someone, or if your parents are giving you money, or
we have to ask for some of
their stuff, and it gets. But you're going to get a home where you're going to build wealth.
Yeah,
it's
worth it.
It's worth it.
It's worth the
Absolutely.
pain. It's worth the pain, and the first one's always the hardest.
Right. And once you get through that, then
you understand the process a little more. And it's key to work with somebody who knows how to help you go through that process.
And walk through it.
Yeah.
I do think
because I can eliminate a lot of headaches up front, only from my underwriting experience in my past. I typically just try to identify issues up front, get them fixed before we move forward.
Right.
So sometimes we have some pains at the back end, but
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But if you can work with somebody who knows what they're doing, it can be a lot easier.
This is where that no pain, no gain,
a little bit. There's a little bit like, when you work out and you wake up the next day and you're sore and it hurts to get out of bed.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Since you've worked out?
Yeah.
I know. I worked out yesterday for the first time since I cracked my ribs. It's been like a month. So did we talk about...
He fell off his mountain bike. Anyways.
Of course I did. What else would I have done? So 90%, we spoke about that number, right? 90% of consumers overstate that they don't know how much is required for down payment.
Right, we did. We spoke about that.
So the last stat that I want to share is 32%.
A third almost.
Yeah. So one of three understand the minimum credit score required. So 1 out of 3 people.
Right.
So this just shows me, okay, there's people who think I need more down payment, who think, hey, I've only have a 675 credit score, so I can't.
Right. Which 675 we
can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah, I can work with the 675.
Yeah.
And there's ways to boost that credit score up too.
Right.
The one thing is, I do think people are more aware of credit and understand how it works.
Right.
There's been a good amount
education, maybe more on credit score and
monitoring
how important it is.
has become a big thing over the last 5-6 years.
Right.
Like all of Experian, you can buy into. I didn't buy. I think my information got hacked or something, so I got like a unlimited subscription to Experian in case somebody steals my stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. But there's a lot more of that, which helps. But yeah, I just see a lot of gaps here. That
and if let's just say hypothetically your credit score is horrible, we
meaning me,
you can actually pull that credit, look at it, say, hey, these are some of the steps that you need to do in order to get approved so that we can raise your score. And then there are other, we talked about this a lot probably months ago about like younger people who are 18, what are the steps that you need to do so that you can get into home ownership? Opening up a credit card.
I would say that is the most significant jump that I noticed on the survey is the awareness of credit. So just a couple quick stats, and then I want to move over to you. So in 2015, only 82% of consumers felt like they understood their credit and how it works.
Yeah.
As of today, we're at 93%.
That's great. Yeah.
As far as
82 to 93, that's great.
Yeah. And then as far as we said like the monitoring services, in 2018, only about 1 in 4 people, so 25%, were using credit monitoring systems. Today, it's like 40%.
Yeah. I have one of my credit cards has a
a lot of times it comes
automatic
with it.
monitoring.
Yeah. Yep, they send you with your statement every month. Here's your credit score and all that.
But let's just credit is definitely something that I think high schools are teaching about it more now.
Which is
so they're
great.
educating, young kids or older kids, I guess, about how to handle credit. But what we're saying is it's important to have credit. It is not important to get in debt. I mean, we don't want to get in debt, but we want to know how to utilize credit.
Responsible use of credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, and I think that comes with education too. Like you get a credit card and it's like, whoa, I got to. Like my limit is how much available cash I have.
$1,000 because that's usually what it is. Or $500 when you're 18, right?
And then all of a sudden you go out and buy some stuff or go out on a night out on the town and you got $1,000 racked up and no credit left.
And then your credit score goes down.
That's right.
Yeah, you might have the credit, but now you've used all that credit. And so,
And we've talked about that, like
we
trying
have.
to keep
We
your balances below, 40% of your
Right.
limit and things like that. And but there is, I mean, that's encouraging to me that people are learning more about credit. And you're right, the young people seem to be a lot more aware of it.
A lot more educated than we were. And,
Yeah.
they have these great, like back in our day, or I think, when I was in my 20s and 30s, we had Dave Ramsey, which he's still around. And, whether you agree or don't agree, but then you have like Susie Orman, right?
Orman,
Isn't
yeah.
she a big credit person?
She's from Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is she?
She's been on Shark Tank, but I mean, she's kind of like a real estate mogul, right? I mean, that's what she's done. Oh, no.
No, that's
Who am I
Barbara
thinking?
Cochran.
That's right. Who's Susie Orman?
Or is she a Christian person? Isn't she like on MSNBC or NBC?
I have no idea. I think I know. Does she have short blonde hair?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. We should probably move on.
Okay.
So what do you got for us? I know it's related to kind of what
It
we
is
were talking
kinda
about here.
related. So, hey, once you figure out, once you call your mortgage broker, the first step, let's just tell them. The first step is call a mortgage broker, call a realtor.
Yep.
Any one of us will help you. But then what you do is you call a mortgage broker, you have them run your credit, and we start right there.
From there.
Figure it out.
You know what? And sometimes,
what do you need to do?
Sometimes we're not there.
Yeah.
But you know what? At least you know where you're at.
Right.
And I'm going to give you some ways to
We're going to
move
give you
towards.
a finish line on how to get there.
Exactly.
On how if home ownership is something that you want, we're gonna start the race, and we're gonna and maybe it's a marathon and maybe it's a sprint, but everyone's different.
You got to start and you got to
make
make that decision.
Exactly.
Because some people, I think, they're scared. Like
Yes.
they know their credit's not great,
Right.
and so rather than addressing it, they just kind of want to keep it under the rug and not worry about it or think about it. And that's just, it's just better to know and start addressing it because that is the biggest piece and sometimes can take the longest to correct.
But
So
you need a place to live for the rest of your life.
You do.
You might as well own.
Yeah.
Right? And build some. So
what's the interest rate on renting?
100%.
100%.
100%.
Sounds a lot worse than the 6 3/4 that we're at today.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell you, kind of 7 reasons, according to NAR, the National Association of Realtors, of why you should own a home, right? And so,
one, you need a place to live.
One, you need a place to live,
So
right?
maybe that's
so I don't know if that's in there, so we'll add 8.
That's 8 reasons. Okay.
So, but
are we going to go from the bottom of the list to the top?
No, these aren't in order, but these are just reasons why you should buy, right? So first one, and the one that most people love, is appreciation.
I love appreciation.
So like he said, 100% interest if you rent, but if you are paying, let's just make it high, 8% in interest, you are paying down a mortgage and your house is appreciating in cost, so you get that appreciation if you ever sell. And
what did we see last year in appreciation?
Oh, I think it was a little bit lower, but was it like 4 or 5%?
Yeah.
I think on average, you usually see 6% or more. It's been way higher in the Denver metro area for the past 10 years.
But we're starting to see that level out.
We are starting to see it level out.
Yeah.
So with appreciation, like we said, equity, that was 2. We kind of did those in one, right? Yeah. Maybe we add, you need a place to live.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But tax benefits.
There are some tax benefits to home ownership.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's more on the mortgage side.
Well, there are. So the interest that you pay on your mortgage for your primary residence is tax deductible.
Exactly.
And usually if you have no chance of itemizing your deductions without that interest rate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So without the interest,
Let's say never, because if you give,
well, I mean,
but that's
you
a
have
lot
to
have
of
a
money.
minimum of $10,000.
No, it's way more than that. It's
is it?
24 now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've increased the there's the standard deduction.
Right.
So they've increased that to a point where almost the majority of people, even if you are a homeowner, you still take the standard deduction.
Okay.
Yeah, but to itemize your deductions, you need to go over
I
and
should
above
know,
that.
but I have someone who does my taxes. So
Yeah. Well, your CPA will take care of that for
Yeah,
you
exactly.
if you don't
Thank
do
you.
your own taxes. All right. So
Okay,
right
and
off
then-
your mortgage interest.
right off mortgages, savings, right? Building equity in your home, it gives you a savings. So I would say that savings and equity are kind of the same thing, but it is. I mean, you can borrow against it. I know a lot of people, especially once again, I keep saying the age that we're at, but who have used
We're
their
old.
home equity line of credit to help their kids through college, right? To help pay for their kids through college. One of the best things I heard from a financial planner was that, hey, instead of doing and I am not a financial planner. Let's
Please
just
don't
put
take
that.
this
Correct.
as financial advice.
Yes.
Contact your financial planner.
Exactly.
But what did he have to say?
That if you were to buy a house for your child who is born, instead of investing into a 529, that when they are ready for college, you've paid down that mortgage, right? You're more than halfway there.
Yeah.
You'd get a HELOC, pays for college, and then they get that house when they graduate, and they have their own property to live in, rent, they own already, and they still have equity in there. I was like, that is brilliant.
That is brilliant. You've got to be in a good position when they're born to be able to do that.
Which we weren't. I mean, that's hard.
I was a young parent.
Right.
So, but no, I mean, absolutely. There's so many ways that owning a home in real estate is just a great financial tool to put you in a better position down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
For your future.
Yeah.
And then we touched on this already, the predictability of a mortgage, right? And how, unlike rent, you kind of have more control of it. And then, of course, number 6 here is freedom. You have the freedom to paint it, to put holes in the wall, to remodel. You don't have to ask someone for permission.
You own it.
Right? You own it. Right?
Yeah.
And then stability, remaining in one neighborhood for several years allows you and your family time to build long-lasting relationships and,
home ownership does. I mean, neighborhoods, I think we've talked about this in the past too, is that neighborhoods who have high levels of home ownership compared to renters are typically a better place to be because you have pride of ownership. You have all of those things. People are invested in the community.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think schools are usually better because, they're invested. But I rented for a long time until, I was older and was able to buy a house. So, so just quick, the 7 great reasons to own a home: appreciation, equity, tax benefits, savings, predictability, right, on rent and what you cost, freedom of doing what you want to do in your own house, and stability.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
those kind of went hand in hand. So we thought we would just.
I think that was great because we looked at, where people are at. Maybe some spots where we could help fill some gaps, some knowledge gaps.
And maybe
and the benefit. Yeah.
Why you should buy.
Why you should buy.
Why you should get over these reasons not to buy, or these fears that you have on what a mortgage is and how to do it, and get
fear
and finish
of the
the race.
unknown, and it's really not that painful. I promise. I'm a pretty nice guy, and I'll guide you through the process. Won't prick your finger or anything like that,
or take your firstborn.
Yeah. So, I think that was great.
Yeah, I do too. Thanks.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, glad you made it through the week.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you know anybody that found this podcast or could find this podcast helpful, please give us a like, share us. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes.
Great. See you next week. Thanks.